Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. After a week of the last Sunday's afternoon show, we are back to discuss the Indian neighborhood with Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar. Sir, good afternoon and welcome to Dev Talks. You've been busy the past week. We couldn't catch up for our middle of the week session, but
Oh,
nice to be back on the weekend. Indian neighborhood has had a lot of news coming out in the past some time, and I think one of the things that I want to emphasize, and please correct me if I'm wrong within this show, is that we all look at India growing up fast and with fury. It can only happen when the neighborhood is sorted. In the initial stages, our adversaries would want to have India look inwards. Now, the inward problem is pretty much, I won't say done with, but a little more handled. Now, the adversaries are wanting us to look at the neighborhood and getting us stuck there. So, thank you so much once again for joining me. Indian neighborhood.
yeah. Thanks a lot, Adi, for inviting me over to the show once again. Uh, yeah, the whole week I was a bit busy on other issues, so we couldn't have that midweek session. You chosen a good topic, Indian neighborhood, because unless your neighborhood is strong, you can't really foray beyond that. And as you know, China had made a lot of inroads into our neighborhood, which is now unraveling a bit.
Hmm.
Um, uh, we are past that stage of inward looking from a long time now. Um, the first stage of outward looking also is that we should have a stable neighborhood, and a stable neighborhood where we have a harmonious relationship with the neighborhood. At this point of time, South Asia as a whole is in a bit of a turmoil, and so I think we need to understand the nuances. Each country has a different nuance,
Hmm.
and the geographical construct of South Asia is that the kingpin and the central pin, or the biggest pin, call it what you want, or the biggest link is India. Without this, nothing happens in South Asia. With all the countries individually are disjointed and not connected with each other, except through India. So that is why we, the neighborhood takes importance in the South Asian context. Now we can start with whichever country you want to start with.
As a matter of fact, yes, sir. But I want to take this discussion. I'll take 2 more minutes of your time before I head into the countries. You mentioned something very interesting. Uh, would you also call it one of the reasons that the Chinese would not be able to become a superpower because their neighborhood is so much trouble?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. That's why they're struggling. If you see, till China gets hold of Taiwan, it cannot become a superpower. We have discussed it, and and it has trouble sitting on its doorstep in the form of Taiwan, right? Just outside, on its immediate periphery, you have Japan and South Korea, and Philippines, and then you have Vietnam, and all these countries, Asian countries, uh, which give it considerable problems. Okay, notwithstanding the might of China, and unless China is able to handle these areas, they have problems. We think of the string of pearls and all that. Just think what China must be thinking. USA has bases in South Korea, Philippines, and Japan, and almost a base in Taiwan, and there's a huge base in Guam, and it has got military equations with Indonesia and Malaysia, and it's got very good relations coming up with Vietnam. So just think how uh, China must be feeling, right? And China doesn't have, actually, really speaking, so far a foot to set on in South Asia. So uh, the neighborhood is important. Unless your neighborhood is secure, you can't think of anything else. Yeah.
Indeed,
So
sir.
which
That's one of the things that we see is that we are at a position probably in the growth part, and the Chinese kind of say that they've already grown and they have a problem. So, anyways, let's get into Pakistan. I think that's one of the biggest questions. I think we've also discussed, and the whole flood situation has been discussed to quite a lot. And I think till the time the whole water doesn't retrieve, we won't exactly know, because the damage started at 10 billion. Today it's about 39 billion, and it's going to go on and on and on and on. What I want to know is, if you look at Pakistan, one thing that you can observe is that the world seems to be more concerned about Pakistan than Pakistan itself. We can see that with regards to what Imran Khan is doing. We can see that with regards to what the government in power is doing as well. The Americans seem to be in. There's no question about it. $450 million worth of a F-16 upgrade. I'd also spoken about this in one of my videos. And the Chinese seems to be kind of sidestepping. How do you analyze Pakistan?
See, Pakistan is right now underwater. Okay, it's doing an underwater swim. The floods are going to set it back. The problem of Pakistan actually will start once the floods recede, right? Waterborne diseases, crop damage, etc., etc. The real problems of Pakistan will start thereafter, and when those problems start, they'll slowly merge into the major water scarcity which Pakistan will experience hereafter. Its economy is down. We know that. Uh, Now that you said $39 billion damage, this 1.7 billion which they're getting from, IMF is peanuts. Well, strictly speaking, yesterday I was in Jaipur dialogues discussing this issue with Mr. Sanjay Dixit, and the first thing he said is, "यार ये तो मूंगफली है." So this $1.7 billion they're getting, that is one. The second thing is, look at this country. It doesn't have water. I mean, it doesn't have anything. It doesn't have food to eat. It doesn't have anything. Yet it is going in for a $450 million purchase of spares for F-16. This is not grant from USA. This is foreign military sales for which they have to
Yes.
pay. Okay. So the question which begs an answer is, if Pakistan has so much money to splurge on F-16s at this point of time, does it need aid? Why should anyone give it aid? Right? No one will. And that's translating into reality. What they've done. I mean, this is the kind of a country where it is. Everyone has said we should give aid, everything, etc., etc. But so far, the aid promised or coming in to Pakistan, um, compared to what happened in the 2005 earthquake and 2010 flood, is far less.
Yeah.
There's a Pakistan fatigue. No one wants to help it, and its politics is becoming more toxic. The army is split, right? And we also have to remember. I mean, not remember. There's a point that in the recent corps commanders meet, that General Faiz was missing from the photo show op only. Okay, a lot of things. This country is going into some other direction at this point of time. And like you said, China sidestepped out of the issue for the simple reason China itself is under problems. It has a drought. Xi Jinping is in a problem. Their exports are really hit. Today, the container rates ex China have fallen. Why they have fallen? The container rates, because the exports are not there.
The oil
I mean,
prices, sir.
oil prices have gone down, and so many things have gone down in China. So they are probably themselves not in a position to help Pakistan out,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And I think the CPEC will take a great hit. It will come out in due course. Uh, so all aid which is being organized, everything doesn't cater for water and all that. So Pakistan is in for an extended period of weakness. Okay, in a way it is good, because that will keep the area cool. It will keep everything cool. And of course, their internal politics are going from bad to worse. And Imran Khan is going off in a total tangent. Um, he's now taken everyone to the cleaners. So, and he's supposed to be the most popular leader in Pakistan today. And very funny. I mean, there's something else which is happening in Pakistan which we need to understand. Imran Khan, this is today's report which I read in Dawn. Imran Khan is campaigning largely in areas where there's no floods.
Yeah.
uh, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Punjab.
Punjab,
So
Gujarat.
yeah, Gujarat. So if he gets that area and he's not bothered about what's happening in flood hit areas, he'll capture power. And if
That's the
he
heartland.
captures yeah, if he captures power through that route, he's not going to bother about what's happening here. And in any case, his economic policies are awfully bad. So that is one. These chaps can't come because I mean, even if they do come, they don't have a real agenda for this. It is surviving day to day. So Pakistan is getting to be a basket case of the highest order. Uh, I will not. I don't think we should talk about it. But yesterday, this is the outcome of my discussion on Jaipur dialogues, right? So
It's
that's
a it's a funny situation in Pakistan. So you spoke about the CPEC, which brings me to a this thing. Nobody's actually said anything about the damage done, but there are reports about 6,600 kilometers worth of roads being damaged.
yeah, yeah. All this will happen. Look, no
270.
one know. No, no, no. Wait. We should be clear. We don't know the extent of the damage. Whatever is coming out is, still initial estimates. The final thing will come out later, and we'll see. But so let's not get into counting those chicken
Only
before
when
they
the water
hatch.
receipt will we come to know exactly, sir.
Yeah, right. So that is what it brought Pakistan. So let's shift focus to another country.
So I want to go to Nepal. You know, I want to project Nepal through Bangladesh, as a matter of fact. And Bangladesh finance minister some time ago actually put out a statement saying that one should be wary of Chinese loans and they're unfeasible and stuff like that. We see, if you connect the dots of the series of events, right after that, Wang Yi met his counterpart within Nepal. I'm sorry, I forget his name. And pushed for this the Nepal China economic corridor kind of going forward. There was a bit of a rush. Two things come out of here. One is the other Chinese trying to create a localized win within Nepal on the BRI, because as it is, the reputation would have taken a hit. That is one. And secondly, we also see the Nepalese Indian relations having pluses and minuses. The minus would be the Agniveer. The pluses would be a lot of the projects which are moving forward with regards to security and with regards to cooperation within a lot of economic affairs. We also know that the Foreign Secretary of Nepal is in India as we speak, and General Manoj Pandey was there on a ceremonial visit as well. How do you analyze Nepal? It's would you
Look,
consider my analysis of it swing state being accurate, sir?
I'll not put it as a swing state. Where China is going all out to get to India through Nepal. Let's be very clear. I mean, what all you said is one part of the story, but the crux of the story is that rail link which they want to get the from Tibet to Kathmandu down to Lumbini and all this. That means if that railway line comes through, as and when it comes through, China will have almost direct access to India.
So the try.
Uh, so to up to the Tarai region. Now that's dicey. It's got great strategic implications. So the Chinese are pushing the Nepalese to accept this railway line project. Uh, I think the costs are huge. Uh, the terrain is tough. Uh, Technologically, it's going to be a difficult affair. All that, but Chinese won't mind pushing it because they will get direct access into India. And not only direct access into India, they get almost direct access into Bangladesh. These are the big markets. That's trade wise. But it will also enable PLA to come to your doorstep. This is something which we have to understand and do whatever is needed to pull the plug out under this. It's not as if it's going to happen overnight. Let's be very clear. Okay. Uh, as of now, the talk is only of feasibility study.
Hmm.
And then to once the feasibility study is done, then the cost and all that. It by the time this project starts, my guess is it will take another 4 to 5 years. That's the
Profile.
minimum.
That's also
But
the stated timeline, sir.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the normal timeline for all these things to happen. But view it over a longer term. For the first time, this railway track will bring uh, Chinese capability south of the Himalayas. That is the dangerous thing. So that's something which we have to guard against. The rest, I think, we are okay with Nepal.
I think, I mean, you also put it across that there's a certain push coming across from China to kind of take this
Yeah, they
project.
are going out because see, there's no other place where they can come south of Himalayas.
Yeah, yeah. Gentlemen, before I go on to my next question, request you all to start firing up the questions. We would be coming to the close of my part so that, I have enough questions for people to ask. I have a few. Request you all to push more. Just to announce, as I said in my previous video, there's a website that you guys can check out. It's called www.thedevtalks.com. I'll be putting in my latest posts some writing, some articles, and some. There's going to be a readers page where you guys can access some important large documents that are put across. For example, the UN report on human rights within Xinjiang is going to be uploaded there. So stuff like that will be there. Of course, please do hit the like button for this particular video on YouTube. Subscribe and ensure that your notifications are on so that you get to know the first time when a video comes up. You can also contribute to Dev Talks through the UPI and the other modes that are mentioned below. Sir, thanks for your patience. Let's talk about Bangladesh. Sheikh Hasina was in India. The Bangladeshi debt to China, if you say if you look at by the books, is about 4 billion. The economic situation ain't that bad. She herself says that we are being preventive, do not fall into a particular issue. Chittagong port seems to be kind of coming into towards the Indian side. There's a lot of agreements of electricity, and the biggest thing that I want to talk about is the 9.3 billion dollars that India has promised in the in loans towards Bangladesh. Now, two things. One is India now trying to and take it. This is just a light statement, but India trying to kind of match China's checkbook diplomacy. That's point number one. And are the Bangladeshis going to be the first one in the region who would be able to come out and talk about the China factor in terms of the loans and what they went through?
Look, they've already spoken.
Bangladeshis
They've
have a
already spoken
certain.
about it.
Yes, sir.
They've already spoken about it that it's dicey to take loans. That finance minister has spoken. Leave that out. Uh, uh, I think Bangladesh is playing it very smart. Um, they're not in any debt trap. They're very confident that they'll be able to handle Chinese loans, and their economy is stable.
Stable.
Uh, and now they're trying to get the best out of India, which they have not got for a long time, right? That's why this trade and all that opening up. We are not looking at any checkbook diplomacy, and this 9.3 billion will be a long-term impact. It's not overnight. So that is one part of the story. Chittagong port being opened up for a corridor into the northeast is a welcome move, right? It will enhance the links between India and Bangladesh. That's one. But the elephant in the room between India and Bangladesh is the Teesta River Water Pact.
Water. Mm.
That all these are peripheral. Till that is solved, the relations won't be on a keel. One, even if it is solved, Bangladesh will always hedge China against India. Let's be very clear. The the terms and conditions of the Chinese relations with Bangladesh are very attractive to Bangladesh in terms of the duty free export.
95%, I guess, right?
Yeah, export duty free exports which it can do to China, and so to that extent we'll get into a balance. But we I don't think Bangladesh can afford to ignore China at this point of time and switch to India, nor will it. Okay. Uh, so, notwithstanding whatever Sheikh Hasina tells today, what happens tomorrow if there's a change in government and a change in policy? So, we have to be on an even keel. While it is good that we are okay with Bangladesh today, we shouldn't get ahead of the equation. Also, one has to be having a balance about how to approach Bangladesh. Uh, let's make hay while the sun shines. The going is good. Let's keep it good.
Indeed. Take advantage of the situation that you presented with. Absolutely, sir. The Rajapaksa made big news last week. He was back into Sri Lanka. He snuck in at about 6:30 in the morning. I personally expected a lot of protest and tamasha and all that. Nothing happened. I mean, it's been quiet. So I don't know if the Sri Lankans have probably accepted him as a Sri Lankan citizen staying in the country, but not as a leader. That apart, sir, we recently got news that the current dispensation told its bureaucracy that India-related projects need to move forward. I think that's one of the things that the IMF also told them, that you need to cooperate with India to, get your economy going forward. Are we gonna see a sort of turnaround looking at the fact that Sri Lanka has probably gone to the bottom of the barrel and is starting to, I won't say come up, but probably starting to breathe a little bit.
Well, if you look at the whole issue, the battle is still uphill. Fundamentally, Sri Lanka it's still in a turmoil. Rajapaksa getting back is not good news. That he was not met with protest means that the local people, not that the people were welcoming him back or not welcoming him back, they were preventing him from expressing themselves. The police clamped down and all that. Right. At the end of the day, there is the internal news in Sri Lanka is that Ranil Wickremesinghe is another face of SLPP.
Right.
So nothing much has changed, and if Rajapaksa comes, he'll do backseat driving of the government. That's the bottom line. The second thing is that the IMF loan is on the verge of getting sanctioned, something like $2.9 billion. Now, even if it gets sanctioned and if it comes through, what will be the effect on people's lives is a question mark. Then the fact is that though IMF has said that virtually India should guarantee for the
So,
IMF loan, but China also is in the game, and China is the bigger debtor than India at this point of time. And there is also a whole lot of debt restructuring which is to go on before things can even be for the IMF loan to come in.
yeah.
So there are a whole lot of issues in this. Uh, I mean, they might say to India-related projects to move forward. They will move forward. They have no choice.
They have no choice.
But will it have a long-term positive effect? Is a question mark at this point of time. Uh, Given the various dynamics which are getting played out there, remember, China was weak enough. I would say China was weak, and that's why it couldn't prevent the Yuan Wang to come in. And sorry, not China, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was weak, and it couldn't stop the Chinese ship Yuan Wang to come in. And China will extract its pound of flesh. Let's have no doubt about it. Okay. So there are issues. Let us see how it goes. I mean, I will not rush into this place where
Yeah.
it is something like we shouldn't be fools to tread into those places where angels fear to tread.
No, as a matter of fact, I think you mentioned the same thing about Nepal. You mentioned the same thing about Bangladesh, and you mentioned that's I think very very clear, because these countries are still vulnerable.
They're
There's no.
they're they're not on an even keel, and you are not so strong that they'll come have no choice other than you. So we have to take it easy.
True, sir. Just a short comment before I go into Myanmar. I'd like to, look at Bhutan, which reported about a week and a half ago a huge slump in its forex because of lack in, tourism. They're not allowing a lot of people to come in. Uh, is that another looming crisis that we have on our in our neighborhood?
I don't think so. Whatever happens in Bhutan, I think India is very clear that it will manage the situation while giving it enough leeway to do what it wants. And India will, at some point, don't call it a bailout, but it will assist Bhutan through the case. Yeah.
So Myanmar, there is an institute in Myanmar. It's called the Institute of Strategic Policy Studies. This conducted a survey some time ago, and I mean, got a lot of feedback from the Myanmarese people. which said, and I quote, about 14% of the people actually believe the capability as well as intentions of the Chinese towards Myanmar. So this is a very telling statement, and there's a huge lot. If you guys want, I'll link this into the description so that you guys can read this report. It's a very interesting thing. The military junta seems to be in full force. Looking at the public sentiment and the junta keeping on keeping the tensions up with the public, uh, junta being pro the Chinese, the public being not. How do you see this going forward? Because there was news, some movement about the so-called Myanmar China economic corridor.
Look, all this news will keep coming out, but you have to read beyond this. 4 days, 5 days back, Min Ho Liang, he went and met Putin.
Putin.
It's very significant. You must understand the strongest relationship Myanmar has is with Russia, not China. China, it has economic relations, but the major military equation is with Russia. Okay, and it has got cultural relations only with India, and it balances India and China out. Plus, of course, its equations with ASEAN from a foreign perspective. So, to that extent, Myanmar will always play a double game, hedging game, and it will always remain a mysterious kind of a nation, closed, inward-looking nation, right? And has its own problems, in fact, which are getting worse. If the thing continues like this, we might end up in some kind of a civil war situation there, because the democracy faction, especially with the Aung Si, Aung San Suu Kyi being
And yes,
in her jail term extended and all that, and the democracy
aggressive
her part.
imprisonment.
Yeah. So there is going to be an extended period of instability here. This China Myanmar economic corridor and all is something which is still in the air. So we'll leave it at that at this point. Uh, the question which I keep asking, are we doing enough? That's the problem. We don't seem to be figuring anywhere in the solution or the problem.
Hmm. China is the problem. There's no question. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So that is the point which I this thing, because I don't know, maybe uh, the government of India is taking a very measured or a calculated step. But my view is we need to be a little more proactive.
That would be the bottom line in the Indian neighborhood, sir. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you.
Right. Okay, gentlemen, I'm going to start with the question, ladies and gentlemen who are joining us. Please don't forget to hit the like button and check your subscriptions. Start hitting us with the questions, and we start with the first one, who says, "Why did the CCP rush into confrontation with so many countries? Too much money?"
Well, that's the CCP's way of looking at life. It's not only the CCP, it is Xi Jinping who prematurely felt that the world was his oyster soon after the pandemic, and they went into confrontation with all countries. It felt that all countries, no one can do anything without China, and plus he wanted to pull China back into mainstream communism. So it's a long and difficult. I wouldn't say difficult. It's a long question to answer. It's a huge analysis. So we leave it at that. In any case, it's not so relevant to our neighborhood.
As a matter of fact, me and Shankar have actually spoken about the thought process of the CCP. You can actually go into my YouTube channel. You can go into the playlists onto China Watch, and you'll be able to get a whole lot of stuff over there with regards to what you're trying to ask. What was the reasoning behind the CCP moving on to the BRI and so on and so forth? Uh, he also says good excuse for Bajwa to continue. I think the whole crisis situation. There's a rumor about Bajwa taking an extension.
Let's say again, we don't know how this thing will go forward. There's a lot of confusion in Pakistan, and this flood actually puts a haze, curtain on many issues. So let us see. One has to be a little patient in guessing what will happen in Pakistan and China. Right? At this point of time, you can't analyze Pakistan in the short term perspective. Long term, you can, but not short term. And event outcomes of events are unpredictable there.
Kiran says past decades is Russia, now it's China. Why can't India be, or why can't India be the next target for the West? Why wouldn't? Okay. Uh, is it China, our adversary? Western countries have been undermining India for the past 300 years.
Well, that's a logical thought process which is going around. Uh, in some manner, India was targeted long before China. One of the reasons why you've been kept at this level and denied technology and not this thing is that it is by some design. They are also worried that India will get ahead of their curve and get out of their control, and that's going to happen. The difference between what's happening in China and the rise of India is that India is a far more democratic country which can absorb this nonsense from West. Just think, how many CEOs in America are Indian origin? How many people prop up? How many Indians prop up American wealth? That's USA. You always almost had a guy of Indian origin become the prime minister in UK of all places. So it will not be easy for anyone to put India down beyond a point. The one person who can do it beautifully is an Indian. What we can do for ourselves negatively is much more than what others can do for us negatively. So our problem is within, it is not with West. Right? We will forge ahead irrespective of the West, and if we have to lag back, it will be irrespective of the West. Or for that matter, any other country.
Indeed, sir. Thanks, Gurmeet, for that super chat. Where will Pakistan head after this, after all this flood, and why do we think our neighboring country should be with us, even when we are neutral?
Oh well, Pakistan, where it's going to head is something I've been saying. It's almost, I don't know how it will
I'm
revive
sorry.
out of this. I
Sorry.
don't think Pakistan will be able to revive out of this flood because this flood effect will take a couple of years to wear off. By then, the Pakistan will go into a state of absolute water scarcity. That's almost done. And once Pakistan goes into a state of absolute water scarcity, its economy won't revive. And at this time, you must understand its population is still booming. A large population, failing GDPs, failing economy, uh, Pakistan will continue to be looking inward. There's no two ways about it. So that is where I leave it with Pakistan. If you really want to understand what my long-term view of Pakistan is, please watch Jaipur Dialogues yesterday's thing. You'll get a lot of questions were asked, a lot of answers also I gave on this issue. That Pakistan, the revival of Pakistan is very difficult unless there's a major change in the way they handle things.
May I add one thing, sir? I
Yeah,
asked you the first question, and I firmly believe that Pakistan and its leadership or its Ashrafia today is not really bothered about what is happening. If you look at the news channels, you look at Dawn, you probably get one opinion that talks about the flood, and the rest of them talk about army chief or Imran Khan and
yeah,
this and that. They themselves are not bothered about it.
yeah. There's a
So
disconnect between what
I
is in there. Look, there's a disconnect, huge disconnect. So if we can keep talking on Pakistan, I think we'll go nowhere because Pakistan is going nowhere. Let's leave it and see or tackle the next question. We have to. Mm.
Sachin says how tables turn. It was East Pakistan who we touted as the basket case of South India, South Asia, and it ended up turning out
Yeah,
to be West.
again, it's a matter of policies, it's a matter of people, it's a matter of their politics, it's a matter of their armed forces. What Sachin has said is very right. You have a basket case of a Pakistan, it's not going to come out of the basket. So let's move ahead.
Shritik says, I think we'll give a short comment on this question, sir. Your view on the Ukraine conflict, given it's been on for 6.5 months, what are the lessons to be learned until now? And what do you feel lies ahead? So, before you answer this question, I'd like you to kind of pitch this answer with regards to the requirement of infantry and the Agniveer part of it, because this is something that I
Yeah,
saw.
wait. I don't think we should touch this question at this point of time, because this has nothing to do with our neighborhood.
Yeah, it
Okay,
is not.
so we will talk of this question, and we'll talk of Ukraine and the lessons learned, everything in a separate thing, because
Fair enough.
unless we get the full background and see what's the current situation and what has happened, we will not get the right answers. Okay, so I would rather stick to our neighborhood. Yeah.
Kiran asked, what is the disengagement of PP-15 in Ladakh? What is the
Again,
reason?
we'll not talk of this at all, because this is purely a Sino-Indian affair. I would rather, yeah.
Why don't we talk to Bangladesh for a road rail through North
North
Bangladesh
Bang.
to help us bypass the Chicken's Neck and maintain mainland and northeast?
Yeah, I think this talk is on. This talk is on, and there's no doubt about it. Today, you can catch up. In fact, in some manner, it's already there, because you can catch a bus from Bangladesh, Dhaka to Calcutta, Calcutta to Agartala. These things have started in some manner. Through and through rail route will be the ideal thing. But like I said, the elephant in the Indo-Bangladesh relationship is the Teesta River waters. The day we can sort that out, a lot of things will fall in place. And for that to sort out, the center, Bangladesh and West Bengal have to be on the same page, right? So let us see how it goes. Whatever has been so far agreed to has actually not been ratified by both sides. So by their parliaments and the states and all that. Uh, so that's the crux. The rest are all peripheral. This link through Bangladesh is a major step forward for India. Okay, and that will actually coalesce Bangladesh economy and tie Bangladesh economy with the Indian economy intrinsically. But I think we have to go through a little more diligence before that can happen.
Next, Sandeep asks in Hindi, बांग्लादेश में हसीना सत्ता को बाहर हो जाती है तो पाकिस्तान और चाइना भारत को बांग्लादेश से भी परेशान करेंगे, आपका विचार?
Yeah, this is a fair question. If the Hasina Sarkar goes, there are chances that Bangladesh, the next party which comes in, might be a little anti-India. But I think what has happened in the past 5 6 years is that the the overall tenor of the Bangladesh itself has changed. Now, if our relationship goes bad, it will affect Bangladesh more than us, right? The question then is, will Bangladeshis accept this? Will Bangladeshis accept downgradation of their own self? Because they've tasted economic success, they've tasted per capita incomes are higher than India today. The trade is doing, everything is stable. Why will they go back? If they go back, one of the major reasons for them going back and slipping down will be uh, bad relations with India. So, will they do it? They've seen the value of good equation. Will they not build on it? So, whichever party comes has got very little leeway to again, start this China, India, and Bangladesh, and or India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh business. But then we have to be alive to the fact that this can happen. There is some element of reality in this question. Uh, but at this point of time, the that Sheikh Hasina's government seems to be stable, so we shouldn't get too bothered about it.
Some think tanks postulate that BIMSTEC and ASEAN can become an alternative to China. India can initiate talks of linking all these countries through road, rail, and a union like EU?
Well, it's a very good thought that we should be a a set of linked nations like the EU. But the problem is, like I said, India is the common binding factor. Unless India Nepal, India Bangladesh, India Sri Lanka equations are tight, you can't get their connectivities because uh, Nepal Bangladesh or Bangladesh Sri Lanka or Sri Lanka Nepal relations, I'm just taking three, you could add others also, are predicated on India being the centerpiece of the show. Right. And one worry which all these nations have is that if all this happens, India will become too big for them and it'll erode their sovereignty. So, while the notion is good, its chances of happening are very poor at this point of time.
So are we looking at another range of increasing inflation in Pakistan considering IMF conditions?
There is just no doubt. There is no doubt. Look, Pakistan is going to go through a very horrible time for the next 1 year. It's going to be very critical. Forget inflation. Everything is going to be on short supply. It's going to be a total basket case. It might be a case where there might be an international team for disaster relief in that place. If Pakistan might need absolute humanitarian aid, like it happens in Somalia, Ethiopia, and all those places. Uh, it's on the cards. Okay, so let us see. And then there would be political turmoil also to add to all that.
Mr. Nair asked, should the border with Nepal be closed or sealed? Can there be a barrier against future infiltration by the Chinese? If not, can we have an effective security treaty with Nepal?
Look, why should you close the border with Nepal? That's the worst thing you can do. We tried some kind of a barricade, trade barriers we've set up, and it actually backfired. You have to understand, half of the Tarai region is similar to people here and there. Uh, Similar people are this thing, and there's a Hindu kingdom. You have that religious connect. I don't think we should this thing. No, as far as the security pact with Nepal is concerned, it's not just India Nepal security thing. Has to be secure against whom? China, with whom it has got a great friendship, or should it have a security pact with China against India? After all, there are only two borders for China, Nepal, and historically Nepal has hedged China and India or Tibet and India. So I think we have to accept Nepal as it is and ensure that it doesn't go towards China. That's the crux of our issue, right? And we have to reinforce the people-to-people connectivity, which is our greatest strength with Nepal. Closing borders means breaking that link, which is the worst thing that can be done.
Darshan asks a personal question to both Adi and General Shankar. Do you believe in the Thucydidean dictum of the strong can do what they can and the weak suffer what they must in international relations?
Yeah, Adi, take on.
Just look at what the USA is doing. I think that's the only answer I can give. I mean,
Look, that's a natural way of
yeah.
life. It's not, you don't need facilities to tell you all this. If you are strong, you'll do what you want. If you are weak, you have to suffer what is on your plate. So leave it at
I
that.
mean, look at India. If you notice the India Today dialogue, I think where Rahul Karman or somebody asked a question to uh, Minister Jay Shankar and spoke about the autocracy and the electoral autocracy question which has been banged on to India all the time. And he said, what the only crazy that I see is hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And so you can answer that only once you have strength. I don't think he would been able to answer in this particular term about 10 years ago. He was in the foreign affairs office as well. So strength comes from within. So it's absolutely true. So Boulder 99 asks, with Pakistan going down, chances of people trying to get into India will increase. Will India be able to stop the influx of refugees from Pakistan? Will India use force to stop? Same situation in
Ah,
Myanmar. Well, sir, 30,000 people are supposed to be in Nagaland.
there's a difference between India, Myanmar, and India Pakistan border.
Of
The
course.
India-Pakistan border is well manned first and well fenced. It's a double fence with electric thing, and there is a space ahead of the between the fence and the border, right? Which is called the zero line. So there is enough space to keep the pilgrims there. I mean, refugees, if they have to come, there only. Whereas that's not the case in Myanmar, because there are a lot of places, the jungles. You just people move across. It's manned, not manned. You can't see 10 feet ahead if you go to
Or
those
16
jungles.
kilometers is that gap, right,
Mhm.
sir?
That's right. So here it is. I don't think we'll have a refugee influx. We don't need a refugee influx. We will not allow it, and you don't have to get to that violence stage of violence. It is easier if the refugees do collect along the fencing, set up relief camps, other side of the fencing, and feed them, give them some muft ka food, and keep them in Pakistan only. It can be arranged. I don't think that's a big deal. I don't think that situation will come about. I mean, in the sense, the violence part of it will not happen. Yeah.
We should be able to knock off the railway line in Nepal. I think this is
Well,
interesting.
let it let it be
Ability
built
must be there,
first.
of course.
Let it be built first. I mean, long way off. Yeah.
The deal with Nepal, sir. One thing that is there is that now, there was a commission that was set up by the government to investigate into Chinese forays into Nepalese territory. They submitted a report, and that report basically mentioned that this is what is happening, and the government tried to cover it up. There was a bit of a turmoil in that particular aspect of it about a couple of months ago, uh, but it completely calmed down. Now, the wonder that I want to ask you, and the question that I want to ask you about Nepal putting through this particular thing is that why is it that the Nepalese opposition people are basically accepting this? I mean, there is no sort of a outcry or outburst from anywhere with regards to this entire thing. It's periodic. I mean, it's not a
Look, let me put it this way. At this point of time, everyone knows this is just a feasibility study. There's a long way off, right? We don't know how things will happen. We know it's good to see the dangers in the whole story. It is good to see what it means, that part of the analysis. But beyond this, I think at this point of time, to discuss it beyond this is a little premature. What will be the reaction of the people? We'll see when it comes. They also know that it's not going to happen in a hurry. And in any case, this is not a new idea. This idea has been on the table for the past 5-10 years.
Mr. Nair says, how, if all, can the Quad be of help in countering China in Burma, Bangladesh, and Nepal?
Yeah, Quad has got a lot of value. After all, Quad is already helping us in Sri Lanka, right? So Quad has got value, but I don't know if the Quad has come to the stage where we can bank on it to help in Bangladesh and Nepal and Myanmar and all that. In fact, Myanmar is more important to the Quad than any other country, but I don't see it coming forth. So this is something which uh, uh, India has to force the Quad to break out of its own shackles of thinking. I've always felt that Quad should have Myanmar right up there more than any other country. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And for some reason, why I don't know. I don't understand why the Quad has neglected Myanmar, right? And maybe it stems from the fact that India itself doesn't want to get involved too much with Myanmar for whatever reason, right? So, if India is not so keen, then why will others take the lead? That's the question. But fundamentally, the Quad needs to be leveraged.
There's a thought process, and somebody had written about this about a month ago. So, we spoke about the extension of the Indian neighborhood, and where they spoke about now today, if we are wanting to get into the Quad, we talk about the Southeast Asian region, which adds into probably the framework of India, and we also want to get into I2U2. So, how does this kind of extension of the Indian
Look, if you
neighborhood?
get no, no, wait. I mean, these are all fancy thoughts. Extension of Indian neighborhood. What is Indian neighborhood? Indian neighborhood is these 5-6 countries. If you get hold of them, and then you want another extended neighborhood. We all know that India's extended neighborhood is ASEAN on one side and the Central Asian
West Asia.
republics and West Asia on the other. Okay, so it's not a new idea. That's the extended neighborhood. It's an old idea, uh, and we generally have good equations with all these extended neighborhood. It's our immediate neighborhood which is a problem. Extended neighborhood is very good, but first let's win over our immediate neighborhood.
I think which brings back to what I first asked is because, and I said this about China that I don't think China would ever be able to become a superpower until unless it resolves issues with its own neighborhood, and India being one of the biggest ones. So if China does not resolve the issues with India, well, it's going to be a stopgap or a stumbling block for Chinese growth into their so-called dreams of being the world number one. On that note, sir, thanks so much for this educated discussion on the Indian neighborhood. There are loads of questions that have come on the India-China issue, which I think a lot of people want to, and
Yeah, we'll talk of India China separately, right?
I'll plan a discussion on that. And get into a little bit of more detail in that particular subject. Of course, there's a lot happening in Ukraine. Honestly, I wouldn't want to get into that right now because it's a flux. It's in the middle of battle. Let the thing
Yeah,
kind of
let things even out. Maybe a week later we could talk of it.
it'll come to some sort of a conclusion right now because tactical maneuvering on the battlefield and the whole Twitter analysis that is taking place is something that I don't want to fall into. I've not done that on this particular channel, and I don't want to do it because it's my reputation at the end of it on the line. Let me
Yeah,
put
I
that
agree with you.
I want to keep it factual and I want to keep it, something which stabilizes to a certain point. Russian withdrawal or Russian victory, whatever it may be, we are going to just sit here and analyze. Till that time, sir, thank you so much for joining in once again. Thank you all for joining in for this particular subject. I think I'm going to stick with this 4 o'clock, time for a Sunday live. It's good. It actually gives a lot of people, and I got some feedback last time where people said, you know what, we couldn't see the live, but it gives us time on Sunday in the evening to watch it. So please do in the afternoon. It doesn't matter because we end up watching it, and as a matter of fact, the last video did really well. The kind of views we've been getting, almost 500-600 views a day. So it's very good. Thank you so much once again, and till next time, Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.